Yeah.
I absolutely agree with both Marcia and Jenn. Anybody can lobby. And, there are some interesting aspects about Wyoming that make it pretty unique. Because we have a citizen legislature, you work one-on-one with legislators. Not all states provide that option. So, you get to build relationships with the actual decision makers and getting to know your lawmakers, getting to know the issues that are important to them and telling them about the issues that are important to you is critical. They don't have staff. Unlike other states, they don't have a staff that can research any specific area. They rely exclusively on the Legislative Services Office for information, which, to Jan's point, is a really important reason why lobbyists in Wyoming, citizen lobbyists and professional lobbyists, are seen as a way to provide information to lawmakers. They don't have the time to access and research and gather all the information. So if you can come forward with an idea or an issue that you're lobbying backed up with, some data or some anecdotal stories, that provides them important information about the issues that are important to you.
Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing that. And we love to hear that kind of touch on the storytelling aspect. If you want to learn more about that, head over to our YouTube channel to watch last week's session. And we're going to jump on to some questions about lobbying in person. Jan, can you tell us kind of the ins and outs of lobbying in person? Oh no, you're muted.
Okay, take two. So first, I want to thank the ever awesome Equality State Policy Center for hosting this important series. And I'm really pleased to join this talented panel. I wanted to acknowledge Representative Roscoe's contribution and how much he will be missed. And hopefully if he can join us before the end, I'll make sure I say that. So there are several ways to have an in-person conversation with a legislator. One is when they're at home. As you know, the legislature only meets for a few weeks every year. And so that means that your better chances to meet with a legislator while they're at home. You can meet with them over coffee and have a conversation about an issue you're interested in, or you can be part of a more formal meeting or a town hall even that they call to make sure that they understand your issue and your points of view. For this group, I really agree with everything we talked about earlier, that anyone can lobby, but the importance of people who are working with this part of the conversation are people who are directly affected by the issue. And so that really puts you all at heads and shoulders above what we're calling the professional lobbyists, who work on things that they may be passionate about, but they're not necessarily directly affected. So the importance of bringing your story to the legislator is very important. The second way to talk with them in person is to come to Cheyenne and either meet with them during their the time that they're in session in the chambers, or to actually meet with them while they're moving through the Capitol, or even during a reception that happens during the session. So, and let's just backtrack a minute. This is about human conversations. Legislators are human. They, the way that I'm treating them here, I make them sound like something other than that. But, they have been elected to bring their ideas to the benefit of the state of Wyoming. And so there is a bit of formality involved, because we want to give them that level of respect that they deserve, because they did go through an election. So I think that's one of the reasons that this ends up being a thing versus just having a conversation. So if you're going to talk to a legislator during the session, there's a whole process of sending a note in. You write on the note who you are, how you're affiliated, and what your topic is, and you ask them to come out of the chamber to talk with you. And this is really the quintessential toe-to-toe conversation. There's a few tips that I want to tell you about that. What I call rules for success. One is to dress appropriately. The second is to have information readily available, or make sure that you send it after the conversation. Introduce yourself and those with you so that they understand who they're talking to. And I even think it's smart, if there's several of you talking with a legislator at the same time, to send a list of those names either before you meet with them or after, so that they can refer to that. A few pleasantries are fine. Maybe telling them how you met them, or remind them of a conversation you've had previously, just to start to build that relationship and cement you in their memory. But you want to get to the point. They may get called back into the chamber, and if you haven't made your point of the reason that you bring them out, it's important to make sure that you get that done. Otherwise, you have to go through the process all over again. And then the last thing is, breath mints are never a bad thing. These are very much in person, and so you really want to leave a good impression that way. I say that this is important because citizen lobbyists are invested in the issue that they're there to talk about. And there's several ways to show what they're interested in. For instance, sometimes people will wear pins. For Medicaid expansion in the past, we've had pins and everyone wears them. At the last session, everybody had t-shirts on that were the same color. And then one time in my experience, doctors were lobbying an issue, and they all showed up in their white coats and lined the halls of the Capitol. And that was a pretty impressive sight. In another situation, outfitters were interested in an issue, and honestly, they came in their, the only thing they didn't have were their spurs. They came in their muddy boots and blue jeans, but they had an impact. That was important, and everybody knew why they were there. So there's the verbal and the nonverbal conversation that you'll have with legislators. But all in all, it's just the importance of being yourself, treating them with that level of respect, but still trying to establish a relationship with them. So I'll leave it there, Celeste.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And before we move on too much, I think we have Representative Roscoe with us. So I want to give a quick introduction. This is Representative Jim Roscoe. He serves House District 22, which includes Lincoln, Sublette, and Teton counties. And he also sits on 3 committees, including House Revenue and House Corporations. And he brings a really exciting viewpoint to the conversation as a lawmaker. So thanks for joining us, Jim.
Thank you, Celeste. I finally got to thank.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and keep us moving on our slides, but we will come to you in just a second, Jim. Does that sound good?
Great.
Perfect. And I see that question submitted. I am going to save that for the end. But if we have any questions that come in that are pretty topic specific, we'll jump to those first. So, Marcia, can you share a little bit about lobbying virtually?
I can. You know, COVID was a difficult time for all of us and changed so many things. A lot of those were negative, and some of them have turned out to be quite positive, I think. And one of those is that we can now attend most committee meetings, and we can watch, we could do that before COVID, watch the legislature in action, but we now can participate virtually, which is a great gift to especially citizen lobbyists who we were talking today. The Corporations Committee is meeting, I think on the 29th and 30th in Hewlett. And Hewlett is a long way from everywhere. And so being able to participate virtually allows you not to make that trip, maybe not taking a whole day or two off of work, but choosing an hour or two when you can share your viewpoint virtually. It's an easy process to do. If you are interested in the legislature at all, you just need to, I don't know if you went through the website with everyone in the earlier session, but WyoLeg .gov is an exceptional legislative or an exceptional website. And yep, there it is. You can get all the information that you need to get upcoming committee meetings. You can, it just flashed, you know, do you want to watch an upcoming committee meeting? But you can go to an agenda, and maybe we'll pick minerals. Celeste, minerals is also upcoming on the 27th and the 28th. And you can click in and go to details. And on the June 20, I have a hard time reading, June 29th and 30th, you can, oh my goodness, it's not going to give it. Often you will see in your clicking, you may even try corporations, that you can participate virtually. And you have to register generally before you are able to actually provide information to the committees. Let them know that you would like to share information or to testify in front of them. Generally, they appreciate it if you do that 24 hours in advance, but they have changed things up. Oh, there you go, audio, visual, or video right in the middle, right? And sometimes, and you can see at the top, it asks if you would like to testify. And if you would like to testify, you click on there, you share your name, they send you an email and a link, and you are able to participate. The process is a little bit different because you are virtual, you're on YouTube, and so you're watching yourself, which if you are like me, really that can be very distracting. Also, you have to turn off your own sound so that you are just using the YouTube sound, or it sounds, it's hugely echoey and no one can hear you. They will invite you in to their meeting and call you by name, and you testify just like you would testify personally. You address the chair and members of the committee, you introduce yourself, try not to look at yourself and look at the members of the committee, and share the information that you are prepared to offer on whatever issue. And I'm not sure if you talked about, excuse me, testifying in a committee during your last session, but just a couple tips on that. You want to be brief. If 20 other people before you have said exactly what you had planned to say, it is smart to just let the committee know that you share the views of the last 4 speakers and are happy to answer any questions. Or if you have one statement that is slightly different that you can offer, that is a good thing to do too. They will ask, generally the committee chair will ask if the committee has questions. And if they ask you questions, then you address the chair just as you do in a in-person meeting, Mr. Chairman. And if you know the answer, then you provide the answer. If you don't know the answer, be sure and let them know that you don't know the answer, because as we know with all relationships, trust is the most important aspect of the relationship that you have with a committee or a legislator. And so if you don't know, you say, I don't know, but I'd be happy to gather that information for you. And if you imply that you are going to gather information, then do so, and you let them know you'll email it to them. Thank them for their time. And I think every single person, and perhaps Representative Roscoe can also mention, brevity, being brief is really important. These committees hear from so many people, talk about such a wide variety of issues, and they really, you lose them, I think, after 3 or 4 minutes, even if, you know, you are very interesting and hilarious. But if you have materials, you're going to want to submit those materials beforehand, and you can email those. You can also email them individually to each legislator. You can email them to the LSO staff person who staffs the meeting, and you'll want to make sure to reference them when you are talking about whatever issue. It is also the same as Jan mentioned, you want to dress appropriately. I used to say that you should dress like you're going to church, but church has changed too. So you want to dress like maybe you're going to court and you care a lot about what the judge thinks about you. And the great thing about virtual testimony is you only have to dress up on the top. You can be in your pajama bottoms on the bottom. You want to be respectful. You don't want to interrupt. And you want to keep your expressions neutral and thank them for considering your comments. And I will just end by saying, if you're going to testify to a committee, the best way to testify to a committee is to have spoken to every committee member before that committee meets. And if that's even just via email, it would be great if they can know your position, have your information, and the best of all worlds is if you know how each of them is going to vote before the committee ever meets. And also, if you speak to your legislators beforehand and they have questions, you can answer those and provide information for them before the committee gets together. You can, maybe they need talking points if they agree with you, and you can provide those to them. And it makes the outcome of their decision on your issue a much easier road, I think, if you've spoken with them before. And I think that's all I have for this one, Celeste.
Awesome, thank you so much. I am going to jump right over to you, Representative Roscoe. Can you share from your perspective as a lawmaker what makes an effective lobbyist, and then maybe any lobbyist stories that you have?
Well, I think Marcia spoke as a true professional and really experienced, especially for citizens lobbyists. I'm hoping that they testify lobbying for their cause on video. I'm hoping that we're going to see more of that just because of the distance we have. And so brevity is really key. And if you just give 2 points instead of 6, those 2 will probably be better than all 6. And it really does help to communicate with your representative via email. It really helps if you're, especially if you're but once again, Marcia mentioned trust and honesty is really important, and it takes a while sometimes to develop a relationship. Well, let's say a professional lobbyist in a new legislation. It takes time to develop that trust, and the lobbyists are really important in the whole workings of the legislature. So it goes both ways. The lobbyist has to trust the legislature as well. Two-way street there. And lobbyists are really important because of the nature of our legislature, which is a truly citizen legislature. So people are coming from all walks of life that, but a lot of these walks of life have nothing to do with politics. And so a lobbyist who might have been there for a long time might have a lot more knowledge. Things are going to go during this session. So it really is a two-way street. It's really important to have good relationships with the other things that I think lobbyists can do for legislators to see how it's going in the other chambers. So if you're found in the House, they can get some information from the Senate. If you're so busy, you don't really have time to do that. And also, if lobbyists notice that specific issues that an amendment is coming, even though as a representative legislator, I might not agree with this bill, but I would possibly vote for an amendment that would make it better. last minute amendments. Quite helpful. Can help you out with that. I think probably the most valuable experience that I've had with the supplement last minute as an important bill coming up is the discussions going on for a long time. They texted me, this was this texted me before, documents that had not been brought up previously. So that gave me, I didn't have to get up and repeat something, and gave me some thought, and it was very helpful. I think that's about it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to go ahead and jump to this slide, but before we dive into our questions, which we have some really great ones, I wanted to pass it back to Jan, who had another thought.
Thank you so much, Celeste. I think first that I want to say what I was going to say earlier when you weren't here, Representative Roscoe. I think I speak for the panel and the group here tonight to say thank you so much for your service to Wyoming. We're extremely sad that you're not running again. Your leadership will be sorely missed in the legislature. So it's not only great to hear your thoughts and your voice tonight, but I also want to recognize that you join coalition meetings and you work with citizens all the time. And that is just shows your level of dedication, and I really appreciate your work. So thank you so much. I had a page 2 and I forgot to say it. So I think that one of the things that will happen with the work that this group will do is that you'll be lobbying in groups. So everything I've talked about before was sort of singular lobbying, but it's very easy and important to bring several people into a conversation. And so I really think that's effective, but I have a couple tips there. One is to divvy up your talking points before the conversation starts so that you can have that focused conversation, and then make sure that you give space for each person to add to the conversation. Like I say, it's important to let the legislator know who they just met with, and then encourage all the people in your group to send a thank you afterwards. It can be email or even a note handed into the person in the chamber to say thank you. Saying thank you, I think you hear a trend here tonight. That's really important. Courtesy is important. Again, these are people who have a big job to do. And so we're just trying to help them do that. So thanks for giving me a second chance, Celeste.
Yeah, of course. With that, I'm going to stop the screen share so we can see all of our lovely panelists. And I'm going to jump right into the questions that we have had submitted so far. Attendees, you are welcome to submit more via the chat or the Q&A feature. We really love to give you the information you want. So I'm going to start with our very first submitted question, which I'm excited to hear, is what is something you wish someone would have told you about lobbying before you started? And I will start it with Marcia at the top of my list.
Oh my goodness. I wish that they had told me that, and this is with all due respect, Representative Roscoe, that legislators are people, just like I am a person, and that providing information, you don't need to be afraid, nervous, scared, which sometimes I still am after a lot of years speaking to them. If you're prepared, if you're honest, and if you share the information that you came to share, there's no reason to be nervous and afraid. And I also think that it's not so much virtually anymore, but the clock is my true enemy. And people used to tell me that I tell people now, go early. If you want to chair, and also go early, even virtually, and make sure you're available way ahead of your agenda item, because you never know if you're able to do that, because you just never really know that when your topic is going to come up. So go early. It's about relationships. There's no need to be nervous. 99.9% of the time, you'll be treated with respect, and they'll citizen lobbyists are important, and legislators are grateful to you. Far more grateful to you, I think, than to those of us who get paid to go up there, because they want to know from you what's important in the state of Wyoming. And you are also your own expert. You know lots of times more about the issue than the legislators do, because they have hundreds of issues to learn about. So it's just relax, breathe. I didn't breathe always in the beginning either, and share your story, and you will you'll be pleased with the outcome, and you'll feel good when you've completed it.
Jan, do you want to go next?
Sure. So this pertains to in-person lobbying. And the thing that I didn't realize was the wait time. And again, I didn't include this in my notes, but when you send a note in, then you wait in the lobby for the legislator to come out. And sometimes that you wait, and then you wait, and then you wait some more. If there's an important discussion or the legislator's up to speak, you don't know that, but you end up waiting. And then sometimes they never are able to come out. So waiting, not only virtually, but also in person, is a part of this. But, you know, what you're proving is that you're passionate about your issue.
Awesome. Jen, do you have any words of wisdom?
I think what I've come to learn, and I just sort of fell into lobbying. I'm not sure about the other folks on this panel. It wasn't like I set out to be a lobbyist in grad school or undergrad. It just sort of my career path brought me to this place where from time to time I have to go to Cheyenne and lobby. I think the most important thing about lobbying, at least in my experience, is that it's really built on relationships and trust, mutual trust and respect. If testifying virtually is awesome. Like Marcia mentioned, you don't have to drive, clear across the state to participate in a committee meeting. You don't have to disrupt your schedule for a week. But on the other hand, showing up in person gives you the opportunity to have conversations in the hallways. It allows you to see what other folks in the audience are advocating for your issue or against your issue. And it gives you the opportunity to have relationships with those people as well that you can turn to for information. And also share thoughts on whatever the issues may be. But I have found that, in Cheyenne, especially, spending the time to attend events, spending the time to ask lawmakers out for a coffee or to meet with them and talk, just not even about anything specific sometimes, but, get them to understand that you're going to be around, that, there are some specific issues that are important to you. Find where you have common ground. You're not going to have common ground with every lawmaker, but you'll have something in common. And in those relationships really matter when it comes time for you to ask for something.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Celeste, may I add one thing?
Of course.
Also, all of us are passionate about our issues, and sometimes very passionate about them. We've worked on them for years and keep hoping that we'll see legislation passed on those issues. And I think it's important also to remember that I'm trying to find my words. It's important to not demonstrate your disappointment and if you are angry, if you are upset. Those feelings are best carried home with you and not shared even in the Capitol at all, where anyone else, including even folks who you may not think are involved in the issue, can overhear you. Your facial expressions should be neutral. I used to have bangs and I would walk around sometimes so angry and I would blow my bangs and roll my eyes. And I had a legislator tell me that I needed to stop doing that. It was not respectful, and I probably knew I was doing it, but I'm much more thoughtful about my reactions now too, because this is a process And while it feels personal, it isn't meant to be personal. If someone doesn't vote with you, it's not because they don't like you. So you just have to thank them for their consideration, and think to yourself, maybe next time I'll find a different avenue, and maybe next time. So, and also one last thing, well, there's never a last thing, right? Another thing is, as a legislator who doesn't vote for you this time on this issue that you care about may vote with you on a different issue next time. So you, our relationship should continue whether someone votes with you, with us or not, because you never know when they will be on your side for the next thing.
Awesome. Love that. Got to keep our poker face. The next question is a two-parter, so I'm going to read both of them, and then whichever one of our lovely panelists wants to go first can just kind of grab that. What has been your biggest challenge as a lobbyist? And I guess three parts. Has anything made you want to walk away, and what made you decide to stay? And I'll open the floor.
Okay. Many of these issues are not one-year issues. As a matter of fact, in my experience, one time I got an issue through in 1 year, and everybody was absolutely stymied by that. And the reason for the success, and it's important to say it here, is because of the grassroots, all the people who were willing to talk to their legislators back in their home district and work on the issue along with me as the usual suspect. A 10-year issue like Medicaid expansion makes you love and hate the process. You love the process when you're winning, and you hate it when you're losing. And so far, we haven't, at the end of the day, we haven't come up with the win that we want, which is to give more people health insurance in Wyoming. So I think there's a reason that we all run away, excuse me, that we all run away after the session, just to refresh and get back on track. So, and having people at the Capitol who you can commiserate with, I think, is another good thing. I look at both these ladies here and say that with the greatest admiration for their work as well. We don't always win, but it is worth the fight.
I'll just add that I'm not sure I've ever wanted to quit. I haven't gotten to that point, but there are definitely days when I feel pretty defeated. And usually that is when I come in contact with a lawmaker who is rude or unkind or dismissive. And, you know, out of respect for their position, I will do my best to, you know, demur and not make a big stink about it. But to Jan's point, you know, she might not vote with me on this issue, but there may be another one down the road. But those days when I feel directly disrespected by a lawmaker, I mean, those are pretty tough because, you know, Marcia said earlier, we're all people, they're citizen lobbyists, you know, they're not little mini regime leaders. I mean, they might think they are, but yeah, that I think that's for me is the hardest is when I've had a conversation with someone who's just really rude or dismissive.
Do you want me to also share? I've been doing this for a really long time on a variety of different issues, conservation issues, trial lawyer issues, some good government issues, and there are trial lawyer issues that are very difficult to talk about, and they tend to also be issues that are often in conflict with like small business and those sorts of things. And I think it's the difficulty in trying to convey the importance of, you know, these issues to the whole global look at, you know, people's rights and people's rights to go to court and to have their cases heard on the merits and decided by juries. And then, you know, if you've looked at law books, they're very intricate. Small words make huge differences. And sometimes I'm the only one who gets up and speaks for or against something. And I used to compare it to going to a wedding, and everyone was there for the bride, and I was the only one there for the groom. And those are hard times when you are the only voice for or against the issue that you're talking about. And sometimes those have been times when I wanted to walk away. And then someone will inspire me, some thing will happen that also, you know, if I have a friend who says, if it's not us, who's it going to be, right? And so if it's not us talking about the things that matter to us, then I don't know who it will be. So I usually hang out with fellow colleagues that are on the screen and others and commiserate and go back the next day. And one thing that I've tried to do when I'm feeling a little bit down is I can sit in that gallery and I try and look at every legislator and find one thing about them that I like. And even if it's the tie or a purse or a belt, if that's the only thing I can find, I will find something. And that makes it easier to talk to them, to deal with them. And so those are just some of my thoughts.
Celeste, may I add one more thing? So now that Representative Roscoe is back, I hope that he'll add to this if you'll explain the question. But I think the other thing to remember is that this is a two-way situation. Legislators get disappointed too. They put a lot of chips and a lot of investment into bills that they support. And when they don't win, I think they have the same reactions that we do. So I'd love to hear what Representative Roscoe would add to that. But I think that we need to remember that as well. It's not just our fight.
Well, thank you. That's true. I mean, you can have a broken heart in the middle of the day. But I'm not sure exactly what the question was, except touching on what Marcia was saying, is that, and one of the hardest things for me was deciding not to run again. And it wasn't, there was a couple issues, but it was mainly, it becomes a big family that you're part of. And the lobbyists are certainly as much of that as the senators and the representatives. And it becomes a family that you're, like all families, it's not all smooth sailing. And, but you grow to admire people, and it's really hard to leave it, really. I have a lot of respect for so many of the people involved in our government. I was hoping that we may get more people involved in the state. A little disappointing.
Yeah, that was a really beautiful sentiment, and we appreciate that, Jim. The next question that I'm going to jump to from our audience is talking about how Wyoming politics is not always the most welcoming place for marginalized communities, and some lawmakers don't give that the same level of respect. So when do lobbyists kind of flip that switch? Do they do that? Have you guys seen that? What's that look like?
So I'm notorious for having a really strong stand on this, and so I'll take the first swing at this. My answer is never. First of all, I want to acknowledge that Wyoming is not an easy place to be for certain populations, and I'm brokenhearted for that. I wish that it were different, but I wish it was different across the entire country. So I'm not saying that even if everything became more welcoming for people that identify themselves in a certain way across the country, that Wyoming would be easier to live. I think that maybe we would still have a hard time being welcoming to everyone. So I don't want to dismiss the concern of people in certain populations. And I hope you notice that I'm using people first language, because people are people. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is live to fight another day. And if we've done all this work that we've talked about to this point, let me check the time here. If we worked so hard to get to this point to establish the relationship with these people who have so much on their shoulders, and then we decide that we're going to get mad and walk away, that ends the conversation, and it's hard to regain that ground again. So I feel like it's the answer to flipping the switch is that you never flip the switch. You continue to give the respect that you want to get in return. And it's hard sometimes, I know. Well, I don't know. I don't necessarily, but I want to recognize some of that pain for marginalized people in the state. But I don't think that going negative wins the battle at the end of the day. So thank you. And I will add, that's a really important question. And I appreciate the person who asked it.
Yeah, does anyone else have anything to add on the first part of that? Yeah, Jim.
Thanks, Melissa. I think it is a hard question, and but I do think that it takes more courage to come forth for some of these marginalized folks, and in their neighborhood, say, or as a group. But the more they do, it does tip the needle a bit. And as an example, and I didn't want to bring up this, or maybe I shouldn't be under one segment of society, but we had a page that served in the House, and he was trans, and it was. I thought to myself, oh boy, how is this going to work out in the Wyoming legislature? And it was fantastic. He was fantastic, and he just won a lot of hearts. And so I think stepping up for whatever group you're from is really important. It takes a lot of courage, and I appreciate the courage that I've seen.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I think for the second part of that question, how to be fierce but effective is, remain consistent. Remain consistent in your message. Remain consistent in showing up to the committees that are discussing your topic. Remain consistent in your respect for the lawmakers. They're not always going to respect you back, and there's nothing you can do to control that. What you can do is control the way you react. And, I think it is within your rights to say, hey, I feel like you're being a little bit disrespectful. But I also think that consistency in your attitude, in the comments toward your issue, and in showing up are probably the best way to be effective.
I would have to agree with you.
Wonderful.
I really love the word fierce. I think it's very appropriate. I also think that it's okay to share emotion. I don't think it's okay to share anger. I'm not saying that you have to stay on an even keel all the time. I think that legislators want to understand why the issue is important to you. And so I think a level of emotion is important. It just can't be done it can be done fiercely, as everybody's indicated, but just doing it without the anger piece.
Yeah, something that I am curious about, as we've been discussing, Marcia shared her tip for looking around the room and finding that one thing you like when you're kind of frustrated. Does anyone else have a tip? And Jim, you also are definitely in a situation where you might find yourself a little frustrated during session or committee. What do you guys do to deal with that?
So when somebody votes against your bill and you like to strangle them, it really helps to build a relationship, because the next issue might be completely different, and they need that vote. So more so a few years ago, but even now, if someone votes against something that's meaningful to you, if you go over and talk to them and say, however you can, you sort of are your own lobbyist, but you speak to them directly after, so they know that it was an issue, and it's not. It doesn't make any sense to get mad at them. And you can understand maybe why they voted that way. And then you just say, I respect your opinion on that. But just a brief conversation with somebody else that you might instinctively want to be mad at them. It really does help kind of, it helps you in the long run.
Awesome. Jenn, do you have anything that saves your sanity during session?
Really, for me, it was hanging out at the Capitol Club, in between meetings when I was just, so frustrated. I could pop down to the Capitol Club and there would be a couple of other lobbyists down there, sometimes more, sometimes less. And, you can kind of speak freely with them, especially the ones that you get to know and trust. I also really enjoyed just sort of walking around the Capitol. It's such a beautiful building, and it gives you, I think, a certain level of reverence for what's happening there. And also, throughout the entire building, there are pictures of previous House and Senate classes. And I think that really kind of puts it in perspective that the folks that you're working with right now are not going to be there forever, that, we're just at a point in time where we're dealing with certain, lawmakers, and it just puts it all into perspective. So I think relying on my friends was big. And then also trying to keep in mind that it's just, this is sometimes a marathon, like Jan was talking about, and not necessarily a sprint. So I think that's friends and perspective were my sanity keepers.
The only, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I talked over you, Representative Roscoe. Will you say that again?
Oh, at extreme times, I found it really good for me to walk outside onto the front steps, walk around the Capitol building itself. As Jen says, the inside is really inspiring as well. So just a little walk away from, the chamber feels good.
Awesome. Jan, what do you got for us?
Well, I was going to make the joke about the fact that at the Capitol Club, along with people that you see down there in the camaraderie, there's also food. And if you could see my waistline, you'd know that I rely on food a lot for stress relief. And coffee. I mean, that is a welcoming place. It's well worth, it's a club, you pay for it, but it's well worth it. Just because it gives you that respite. And I agree. I mean, the Capitol is awesome. But it also speaks to the formality that we've been talking about, that even though this is a conversation with another person, it's in this, this austere building that's just been remodeled for millions of dollars. And it's a showpiece for our state. So, and specifically, it speaks to the importance of legislating, the importance of the decisions that are made that affect people's lives every day. Thank you.
I have a question, and I'm hoping that someone on the panel might be able to answer it. I know that I've registered as a lobbyist. At what point do you have to register as a lobbyist? Is there a certain threshold as to the number of hours that you're lobbying, or if you're representing a specific organization? Do we know the answer to the question?
I would say, and I ought to know this, I should just be able to know this, but if you're paid to lobby, you have to register to be a lobbyist, and you have to do that every year. I think if you're a citizen coming down to testify in front of a committee one day, I don't think that you do have to register. It used to be, you know, when you registered, you also received a name tag at the same time. And so a lot of times we'd encourage people who are there for just a day to register. And then they would receive a name tag. Now there are no name tags. I don't know. Representative Roscoe, do you know the threshold? Is there? I know there must be one.
No, I don't know for professional lobbyists. I don't. I know how many signatures you need to be an independent.
How many do you need?
Well, for, let's say, the Secretary of State, for a statewide office, you need 5,418.
And for a legislative race?
I should know that. I've sort of forgotten. It's only a few hundred, maybe 200.
And I think it's based on the population of that district. Or I think it's actually based on the population of voting people in that district.
Voting people.
That is a
So
really
just to carry this just another minute forward, it says the state of Wyoming defines lobby or lobbyist as an attempt to influence legislation. Individual lobbyists are required to register each year. And then the lobbyist registration period is from May 1 to April 30. I thought that had a little bit more to it. But I will say that Wyoming is a little bit notorious for not putting you know, some of our laws are very specific, others of our laws are not. And so I think that this might be a place where we don't have an awful lot of definition. That's not an attorney's opinion, by the way.
wonderful. I will tell you what we'll do. We'll find the answer and it'll be in the follow-up email. So if no one has any other questions, panelists, do you have any last minute wrap up statements for us?
Just a thank you. And thank you, Representative Roscoe. You'll be missed. I miss you already.
Well, thank you. I do have one thing to say about, because lobbyists seem to stay in business longer than some representatives do. And so having a firm knowledge of how the whole system works and where the lobbyist bill is going to go, and what are the next steps, what committees it might be assigned to, what happens in a conference committee, say between the House and Senate, and all things like that. It really, because some of these legislators, honestly, there's so much to swallow the first year that if you don't come from a political or governmental background, you really don't know. And I was an example of that. How the whole thing works for the first section. So your lobbyist can help you out with that. It does help, I think, your cause. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you, attendees, for joining us. This was the last of our SHAPE programming, and we're so grateful for your participation and support. We will be hosting SHAPE in person during the session, which starts on January 10th. I also will be attending the Joint Corporations Committee meeting at the end of this month, the 29th and 30th, like Marcia had mentioned. So if you happen to be at that meeting, I'm happy to help you lobby in person. Otherwise, I will see you in Cheyenne, and thank you, panelists. You all are brilliant, and I appreciate you being here as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy summer.
Perfect. And I'll just give one more reminder that the Equality State Policy Center is a 501c3 nonpartisan nonprofit organization. And as such, we rely on donations to do our work. If you'd like to donate to ESPC, you can find the donation link at our website, www.equalitystate.org, or you can mail a donation to 419 South 5th Street, Suite 1, Laramie, Wyoming, 82070. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. We really appreciate having you here.